There is a crisis at the southern border. We are seeing a major spike in the amount of illegal immigrants that are trying to cross the border, that are being encountered by Customs and Border Protection, and it's happening earlier than we expected. As many Democrats tried to point out, this is a seasonal thing. You know, in the winter months, it's cooler, it's easier to travel through these areas. We see a major surge in the amount of illegal immigrants coming across the border. What they're not telling you, however, is that it's happening several months sooner than it normally does. When you look back at the previous years, and this is data I pulled up from CNN, you can see that it was like, end of April. Now it's happening February. Why? Well, according to some reporters, I believe it was NBC and ABC, the illegal immigrants are outright saying Joe Biden's giving us the opportunity to do it. And that's a problem. Biden's denied this, but I'm sorry. He's the president. This is his problem. And his rhetoric and his policies, absolutely, in the words of the illegal immigrants, it's encouraging them to come. Well, my friends, Ocasio-Cortez is in the news because of what's happening with one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. And I'm sorry, look, I really don't care to talk about AOC, because it just gives her more attention. But I'm sorry, man, this is depressing to me. AOC says calling border crisis a surge pushes white supremacy. It's just like nails on a chalkboard, like the dumbest person in the room affecting policy. And I look at this and I'm like, wait, hold on. AOC does this Instagram thing. She's got millions of followers. And she's like, there's no crisis at the border. You're lying, like outright lying. Check this out. ABC's Jonathan Karl rejects Brian Stelter claim Biden's border crisis is a right-wing narrative. It's not. There is a border crisis. A 6-month-old was rescued after being thrown into the Rio Grande. AOC is one of the worst possible people ever to enter government. One of the worst. Because she doesn't care about these kids. She just uses them as a prop for her stupid performative Instagram trash. I think it's a crisis if a 6-month-old is thrown in a river, AOC. I think it's a crisis when you have a massive spike in the amount of people coming across, risking their lives to come to this beautiful country because they long for that American dream. That's a crisis because they're risking their lives. Don't want them to die. I want to make sure when they come here, they actually get the American dream. That's why we have border control. Human traffickers are abusing people. People are losing their lives. Criminal cartels are transporting drugs. Surprisingly, also avocados, I guess, which is true, but, sure, whatever. And AOC decides to claim there's no crisis. Okay. When Donald Trump was president, AOC showed up to this fence and she pretended to cry. I swear, I'll say in my opinion, the photos she put up was like her fake crying. She is a sociopath. That's what I see in her. I have no problem saying Joe Biden is between a rock and a hard place with these child migrant detention centers. I don't like Joe Biden, but I understand why these children are being detained because we don't know who their parents are. Many of them are unaccompanied, and I'm not going to fault him and his administration for having to do it. Donald Trump the same way, even Obama. What I will fault is the duplicitous scumbags like AOC, who all of a sudden now there's no crisis. There was a crisis under Trump, but not now. And I actually defended this woman. You see, James O'Keefe posted photos from these child detention centers, and he was like, hey, AOC, where are you at? And I was like, well, to be fair, AOC did criticize the Biden administration. Now she's just saying there's no crisis at all. She would have these children die. You don't know what I tell you, my friends? I'm going to say it. I have infinitely more respect for illegal immigrants who climb mountains, who traverse vast swaths of desert, who ride on the top of freight trains, who risk life and limb because they want that American dream so bad. Now, I don't respect the breaking of the law, but that desire, that dream, that vision of America, I understand it. And they know it is worth dying for. That to me is incredible. Nearly brings a tear to my eye. All of these people from these countries are like, if I could only be in America. And then you get people like AOC who are like, it's white supremacy to use the word surge. What's up with these uppity, well-to-do progressives who are like, America is a racist slavocracy. We have the worst health care. They're lying. And you know what, man? They want to let all of these illegal immigrants come into the country. I want to let all the immigrants in the country too. I genuinely do. But the process that we have in place is to make sure they don't end up being trafficked. It's to make sure they don't end up being used as serf labor by massive multinational corporations that don't want to pay benefits. It's to make sure that when they enter the United States, they actually get the American dream and don't have to live as second-class citizens being manipulated by a bunch of these corporations and by activists like AOC. So it's tough. We can't just have everyone just show up, because if we truly want to maintain the American dream, there needs to be some kind of structure in place. I would love it for all of these people who truly believe in America to find that American dream. So my respect to them for they're willing to sacrifice life and limb, which so many progressives are not as they complain about this country. So perhaps maybe we can come to an agreement. The people who hate America and think it's absolutely racist and evil, why don't we have you go to Mexico and Guatemala and Honduras, and you can help the people there and you can help make that country better. And then while you're away, we'll have the illegal immigrants who truly believe in America become brought in the process correctly, legally. And then, we can make sure we maintain that proper system. I'm kidding, by the way. I really am fed up with this idea from these progressives, how much they hate this country. And they really do. I'm not saying that all liberals hate this country. That's not true. There are many liberals who are Second Amendment people. They just didn't like Donald Trump. Many of them are fairly moderate. I consider myself to be a moderate, left-leaning, liberal type individual. There's a lot of people who just don't pay attention and don't care. And that's the big problem. And they get taken advantage of by grifters and con artists, sociopaths and scammers like AOC who say stupid, garbled nonsense. Let's actually read the story. The New York Post reports, Rep. AOC has finally addressed the border crisis, but only to accuse anyone of using the term surge of pushing a white supremacist philosophy. It's mind-numbing that people fall for this stuff. Ocasio-Cortez has repeatedly been accused of ducking the dangerously overcrowded migrant detention centers, despite saying they were akin to concentration camps under the previous administration. She initially appeared outraged when asked during an Instagram Live Ask Me Anything session why she was not addressing the border crisis and the kids in cages like you used to. Asking after a pause, "Are you for real? It's not a border crisis. It's an imperialism crisis. It's a climate crisis. It's a trade crisis. And also, it's a carceral crisis," she said, without directly addressing the kids in cages allegations itself. But people don't want to have that conversation. They want to say, but what about the surge? Well, first of all, gut check. Stop. Anyone who's using the term surge around you consciously is trying to invoke a militaristic frame. It breaks my heart that there are people who are dumb enough to fall for this kind of garbled nonsense. Surge does not mean anything other than a large amount flowing through something. That's it. Look up the definition. And she goes, it is not a surge. These are not insurgents. These are children. Remember that really awful video where it was a Congress session. They were questioning the head of, I think it was CBP, or DHS, I'm not sure. And she's like, with all due respect, these are not illegal immigrants. They are legal asylees. They've broken no law. And the guy's like, subject, 2A code, U.S. code 1930, crossing the border without proper blah, blah, blah is a criminal offense. And he just said it straight up. AOC, her whole shtick is that she throws red meat of meaningless, garbled nonsense to activists who are tribalists and don't care about the truth. And you know what? This is a problem. What she's doing is a problem. I don't care to talk about her stupid social media nonsense. But when you've got millions of followers and they believe this trash, look at this, a child's shoe at the Rio Grande. She says, and that's the problem because it's not a surge. These are children and they are not insurgents and we are not being invaded, which, by the way, is a white supremacist philosophy. The idea that, okay, I get it. You're a hypocrite and a liar. And under Trump, you said kids in cages. Under Trump, I said, Donald Trump, I get it. He inherited these from Obama, but what's he going to do with these kids? They're going to be trafficked. Now under Joe Biden, you won't even talk about it. Why? Because she just wants to be a tribalist. She doesn't care about you. She doesn't care about these kids. She cares about the social media followers and rallying the tribe. That's it. The leftist tribe, those who don't care for policy, just want to own the cons. That's it. We are right always, no matter what, even when we contradict ourselves. Joe Biden is right to have these facilities to hold these young people while we try and figure out what to do with them, where they should go, who their parents are. It's not an easy task. And so, as much as I don't like Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, I get it. Now, Kamala Harris is awful because she was actually protesting Donald Trump's facilities. Now, here she is, part of the administration that's running them. Spare me. Brian Stelter, another duplicitous, manipulative liar, tried claiming it's a right-wing talking point. Okay. ABC News correspondent Jonathan Karl pushed back Sunday against an assertion by CNN's left-wing media guru, Brian Stelter, that President Biden's border crisis is a manufactured right-wing narrative. Stelter accused conservative media outlets on the latest edition of Reliable Sources of pressuring Biden to visit the southern border amid the surge of migrants trying to get into the U.S. There's that word, surge. Oh, no. That is how right-wing narratives trickle into the rest of the press, and they divert attention, Stelter told his panelists. The guests, Washington Post columnist Greg Sargent and Salon writer Amanda Marcotte, both agreed Republicans are setting the agenda on immigration, and they decide that there's a border crisis. Heaven forbid, CNN itself literally reported that we are seeing a major spike in unaccompanied minors coming to the border much, much sooner, predicting it may be the worst we've seen in 20 years. Also, Reuters backs that up. What are we supposed to do when we have politicians like AOC that don't believe news is real? Or when Brian Stelter is more interested in telling us what Fox News said instead of telling us what's actually happening? Brian Stelter, one of the worst people on TV, I swear to God. He just runs the Fox News review show. That's what he does. His job is to watch Fox News and then tell you what Fox News said. And then he comes out and says, everything they say is wrong. And if he actually watched ABC, for instance, maybe he wouldn't have been blindsided by Karl, who says, moments later, Karl was welcomed onto the program to discuss what he thought about the questions that were asked at Biden's first press conference. As Stelter noted, the questioners included Karl's colleague, ABC News White House correspondent Cecilia Vega, who grilled the president on the migrant crisis. But I thought it was the right-wing narrative that was driving this. Quote, watching from home, I would have liked to have seen, more questions, certainly questions on COVID, but there were good questions asked. You pointed to Cecilia Vega. I think that's incredibly valuable. That is not right-wing talking points. Cecilia had just been at the border. She had just talked to migrants who have come over, including some of that point blank, that they had come because they thought they would have better treatment now that Joe Biden was president. That's a legitimate question to put to the president, and I thought his answer was one of the more interesting moments in the press conference. Stelter quickly moved on to a different subject. If Brian Stelter had any iota of honesty in his body, he'd point out CNN themselves filmed the segment where they watched a human trafficker smuggling people over the border. And it was so shocking that Prospect.org and many leftists accused CNN of staging the video, or at least knowing it was staged, and colluding with the far right and CBP or something to that effect. But Brian Stelter's job is just to go, Fox News says these things, and now I have to tell you that Fox News is bad. Is that it? Do people really watch this guy? Well, talk about a fall from grace, Brian. Remember when you used to report on the media, and now all you and Oliver Darcy do is watch Fox News and then complain about Fox News? Bravo, good sir. You don't talk about anything substantive anymore. That's the reality of politics and the media these days. Well, good on Jonathan Karl for pointing this out and pushing back because it's reality. I just don't understand. I got to be honest. How you could be following someone like Ocasio-Cortez or Brian Stelter and hear contradictory statements over and over again. Does the cognitive dissonance at some point not shatter your brain and wake you up from the matrix? Hey, wait a minute. AOC said it was a crisis under Trump. Now she's saying it's not a crisis, even though the numbers are getting worse. Right now, the peak in illegal immigrants that we've seen, according to data pulled I showed from CNN in a previous segment, is not nearly as high as it was in May of 2019. But it is quickly becoming the second highest we've seen. And because the surge is happening months earlier than normal, it is predicted it will be the worst we've seen in 20 years. These are people who are risking their lives who could die. These are people, these are human traffickers. This is from valleycentral.com. NewsGuard certified. Okay. 6-month-old rescued after being thrown into Rio Grande, Texas. DPS says they posted a photo of it. On March 16th, the Texas Department of Public Safety, South Texas Special Operations Group helped U.S. Border Patrol rescue a 6-month-old girl from the Rio Grande River. Texas DPS Lieutenant Christopher Olivares told KVEO that the mother and child had been waiting in Mexico since December to cross into the U.S. The mother paid smugglers $3,500 to cross the Rio Grande into the U.S. The mom was assaulted by the smugglers in Mexico, which resulted in a broken leg. The family of 2 crossed the river in rafts along with 67 adults and 150 children. While crossing the river, the 6-month-old baby was thrown out of the raft. The child was safe and is now with her mother in the U.S. Border Patrol custody. These Border Patrol agents are heroes. Not every single person is a hero. Not every single person I can vouch for. But these guys who saw this 6-month-old baby and saved her life and brought the child back to her mother, heroes. AOC is one of the most, it's the banality of evil. They don't care about you. They don't care about solving these problems. They don't care about being honest. They care about power. That's what she wants, power, more followers. She wants to grow and expand her influence. She doesn't care about anything. It makes me sick to my stomach that she is in government and represents people in New York. But you know what? These people just don't care, don't pay attention, and they just vote for the D. Here's what I think. Take the party symbols off the ballots. No D, no R. You got to know who you're voting for. Still, AOC is a celebrity, so she'd probably win anyway. But I just look at this and it's just absolutely insane and disgusting. She has been criticized very heavily for not coming out and talking about this. Where were you? You went to that fence during Trump and you cried. Where are you now? Complaining that the language is racist and there's not actually a crisis. Think about all of these people. I'm really angry, man. Children are dying. It bothers me. People are risking their lives. As I stated, infinitely more respect for these people who are willing to risk everything, life and limb, being cartels, drugs, all of that nasty stuff because they believe in America. They believe in this country because they know just how amazing it is. Again, I don't respect the illegal immigration. I don't respect the crime, but I respect that feeling deep in their hearts that they know what is true. America is great. And you look at someone like AOC. She would deny these people. She would deny the crisis. She did. And this means to her millions of followers who are now being told there's no crisis at all, more people will die. More children will die. We need resources at the southern border. We need heroes like these CBP officers who saved the 6-month-old baby. 6-month-old baby thrown out of the raft. We need more heroes like them who know what the job entails, who know that these people like AOC will smear them, will lie about them, will call them evil and white supremacists, but they're still willing to do the job that needs to be done and save lives. Instead, we get high-profile, duplicitous manipulators who want to suck the power from the working class for themselves so they can gain status, get reelected, and then when we're truly at our worst and in desperate need, she will come out and say, there's no crisis. Ignore what they're saying at the border. And same is true for Brian Stelter of CNN. There's no crisis. It's a right-wing talking point. A right-wing talking point. Children are dying. And Brian Stelter just says it's a right-wing talking point, even ignoring his own network and the things they have reported. Surge, insurgent. This is what we get, huh? We got problems, my friends, and I don't have all the solutions. We want to balance the freedom of the individual with some kind of structure that makes this system work. We have questions about whether or not people should have skin in the game when they vote. It's a very difficult question. A lot of people like that idea. Service guarantees citizenship, which we've seen from Starship Troopers. I'm not so sure that's the right idea. I get the idea. I'm not necessarily a fan, but the idea was basically you would serve in some way, not necessarily the military, but you would serve the community for 2 years, and that guaranteed you the right to vote. There was a difference between civilians and citizens. Full citizens could vote. Maybe then we wouldn't have people like AOC. Maybe if there were some skin in the game and some requirement, then you wouldn't have people just walking in and blindly saying, oh, AOC, I guess. And then and it would also stop people who are manipulating and lying to a certain degree. Imagine if people did have some kind of aptitude test, or like not even I'm not talking about some like very difficult thing. I'm talking about a basic, you have to come in, fill out a form, and then come back later. Just some speed bump. This idea that everyone and anyone should vote is a manipulation. They want to claim that you oppose people's rights. No, rights come with responsibilities as well. And what was that? What was that famous saying? With great power comes great responsibility. Spider-Man. Voting is incredibly important. It's also incredibly powerful, and it can also be incredibly dangerous if you vote in despots and fascists and authoritarians and communists, because they will lie, cheat, and steal to gain power. So we need to make sure that people understand what their vote means. I want everybody to vote. I really do. Everyone. I think each individual has the right to have their voice heard. I think the issue, though, is that Democrats are doing everything in their power to make it so that people are sleeping on their couch, not paying attention to what's going on in the world, and a ballot just drops in their lap and they sign it and they throw it in the mailbox and they walk away, having no idea what's happening around them. At the very least, have people get up and go to the polling station. No, not even that. And Democrats will continue to exploit low information voters. And AOC is the perfect example of it. She is a master of manipulation. It's not a migrant crisis. It's an imperialism crisis. Don't mind what's happening to the 6-month-old baby being thrown in a river. It's not a crisis, AOC says. It's not a border crisis. No, the problem is climate change. Man, makes me sick to my stomach. I just can't stand these people, you know? It's just evil. Look, I get it. AOC is easy to complain about. I don't like Mitch McConnell. I don't like Lindsey Graham. And I always say that as like the caveat of like, this is not just me not liking the Democrats. I don't like the Republican Party either. And I don't know if I'll ever vote. I voted Republican for like the first time in my life, down ticket with Donald Trump and these other Republicans. I'm not a fan of them either. I don't know. I'm fed up. And I know a lot of other people are as well. Go watch Man of the Year with Robin Williams. It's amazing. Robin Williams is supposed to be this like Jon Stewart type figure. And one of his talking points is complaining about 4 million illegal immigrants crossing the border. And I'm like, this is a liberal TV show host in 2006 complaining about illegal immigration. Yeah, only a couple years later, we saw the likes of Schumer and Bernie talking about the need for a border barrier. Donald Trump offered that up and they called him racist for it. I'm just sick of it, man. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel, and I will see you all then.